Hey there guys, and welcome to another Factorio Friday Facts discussion number 260, new fluid system, and I am with Scarhoof as always.
What's up, everyone?
What's up, man? So, this is the day you've been waiting for, guys. Or we've been waiting for. The new fluid system, they talk about it, and...
And it's the day we get to wait for more information.
Yes. It's, there's good news and there's bad news. I kind of had to decipher, and I was talking with a lot of people about this, trying to decipher what some of this means. We don't have a ton of time for today's, so I'm gonna try my best to just summarize stuff. So this is pretty much all written by Dominic in my first Friday Facts post ever. I'll use this opportunity to talk about the exciting subject of pipes. Spring came with Twinton, and with it Twinton saying pipes suck, 2 people already fixed it and it failed, who wants to be next? And I'm like, hey, it's just pipes. You just make a simple simulation, simple AF. I'm in.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dominic. A little more complicated.
Yeah. So the conditions were quite lenient. And these are important to mention because basically what they wanted was fluids get where they should. They should act in a predictable manner with reasonable splitting, joining, and junctions, which currently they don't at all.
Mm-hmm.
Fluids can travel instantly if need be. Respect the pipe throughput limitations. Flow can be viewed on the pipes. Don't F shit stuff up like running in a circle and definitely sloshing back and forth endlessly. Should be faster, more UPS efficient.
Yeah. And honestly, I think these are fairly broad, you know? I mean, the fact that they're like, yeah, if you need to make it instant, then do it, as long as you fit everything else in.
Right, although that seems to be a bit contradicted later down here. So problems with the current system, basically... everything is they work. The fluids get from A to B, but not great.
Yeah, it really only works well in a straight line.
Yeah, fluid boxes will try to equalize with their neighbors, which is quite fast to evaluate and solve the simple cases, but it does not address much outside of the running through a straight pipe. So you can just see here, green column represents volume, blue represents flow. And then the first of 3 main issues is in junctions. It behaves in a very random fashion, as I'm sure people have noticed. And there's kind of an example here. When you have just junctions, it's just super unpredictable. It's really hard to control. The second issue, player's voice, is the limited behavior of the elevation functions. Only a fraction of the fluid is moved to its neighbor, so you rarely have a tank that is entirely full or entirely empty, which is a problem when you try to mix that with the integer-based circuit network.
Mm-hmm.
Which we've experienced. And the third issue is performance. The formulas are simple. They're calculated for every connection in every fluid box, which adds up. As a result, nuclear power is infeasible for megabases. There are other problems too, such as throughput loss over distance, fluids moving faster or slower depending on the entity update order, etc.
So clearly we need to be fixed. I mean, if we can't use the new fancy endgame power for a megabase, then something's wrong.
Well, exactly, because, I mean, that's kind of what it was for. Like, why do you need nuclear power if you're running, like, a teensy-weensy little dinky base, you know? So the simulator, I don't really understand most of this.
I think he just set something up in text just so he could just have, like, a text window kind of refresh and do all the calculations.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to deal with all the graphics and all that other crap.
Right, so it kind of just did, like, a command line type of thing. Which you guys can read this if you want. So then the possible solutions, and I'm going to try to summarize or maybe even just skip some of these. So the first one was just optimizing the current system. It's something that Harkonnen tried a long time ago to reduce indirection in the update of fluid boxes. Essentially, instead of each entity updating their own fluid, all fluid boxes in a segment would be kept in a singular part of the memory, and then simulation could be updated much faster. It showed a performance increase of 30 to 50%. However, it would not address any of the other issues and would add a significant amount of complexity. Flow model, basically...
Which goes off in a tangent. I'm not quite entirely sure what he talks about, but...
Basically, it was eliminated as an option. And then electric network model, and this is something that our seating has talked quite a lot about, that I discussed with him and stuff. And this was my favorite.
I found this pretty interesting.
Yeah, so another proposal was modeling like an electric network. Fluid flow is a popular analogy to their workings, and they do have a lot in common. The great thing about them is that they precisely model flow branching, and it could work out of the box. What it does not allow, though, is to limit the flow One wire can theoretically run any current, but not so for the pipes, and we don't want one pipe to be enough to supply the whole factory. The limitations could be added, but that would again kill it with complexity.
Yeah.
A simplified version of this is what we consider the nuclear option. In short, fluid network and pipes would work like the current electric network, instant transmission from production to consumption, to increase performance by orders of magnitude and remove the unintuitive flow of the current system. All consumers would get an equal split off the production and storage tanks act like accumulators. However, we have decided not to pursue this for the few reasons. There would be no visualization or indication of the flow of fluid. There would be unlimited throughput. One water pipe could supply all boilers and reactor setups.
Mm-hmm.
It abstracts away part of the realism and charm of the game. While this is subjective at best, it does mean something to us.
Yeah. So I think that the main point here is they know they can fix it. Like they have a model that they know will work, but it removes a lot of the charm of the game.
They're just too picky. Well, but this is the part that I was saying is contradictory, because remember at the top, one of the general constraints or things was fluids can travel instantly.
Right.
If need be. And then down here they say, well, that's not acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then the no visual... Yeah.
Like part of that though, like the visualization, that's not necessarily part of the instant. I mean, that is kind of a cool thing, and being able to look in the pipe and be able to see which direction it's going is kind of cool. I mean, the unlimited throughput can be handled without the instant, right? Like those two are kind of separate. If you have instant, as long as it keeps track of how much water is coming in and the pressure and all that other stuff, as long as it gets there instantly, that's fine. But I think the problem they're running into is one pump basically just fills up the whole thing and then it just goes. And in order to do the calculations to find out how much that pump can actually put in, basically ruins this whole model of instant teleportation.
Okay. Yeah,
at least that's the way I read it. I could be wrong on how they're talking about it, but
right.
They're not necessarily the same thing, but it's going to require a lot more work to make them both work.
Yeah. Now, this is personal preference entirely. You and I have, I guess, different opinions on this in terms of the visualization.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I think this is just not important at all.
Not a big deal.
Everyone except you, apparently, who I've talked to, and that's fine, but almost everyone I've talked to about this, and I've talked to a lot of people about this because fluids have been an issue for a long time, either said that they don't care, period. Like they're just like, if it's there, whatever, but I don't care if it's gone. Mm-hmm. Or they were like, okay, yeah, when I first started and I looked at it the first time, it was kind of cool, and after that I never really cared and just wished it wasn't even a thing.
Yeah, and I understand that sentiment. I totally do. I mean, I guess for me it falls into the it's cool, and it would be awesome if they could keep it. But if they don't, then it's not that big of a loss. But I do think it's one of the cool parts of the game.
Yeah,
it's a graphic thing more than anything, really. And some of the graphics are cool, the way little, the assembly machines chunk up and down and they spew their smoke and stuff like that. And this is one of those aesthetic things, I guess, for me.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's just, I feel like if this is holding it back from
If
fixing
it is holding it back, then let it go. And there's probably other ways that they could handle it, right? They could probably have, I don't know, little pistons going up and down on the pipes or something to signify that there's some kind of motion going on without having it specific to what's going on in the actual pipe.
Right. So there's a few more solutions possible solutions they looked at. Merging fluid boxes. So basically it would, merge similar pipes in a segment into only a single fluid block that needs updating. This would solve performance issues in the throughput loss over distance. However, on its own, it would not solve any issues with update order, unintuitive flow direction, spilling. Physics stuff. I'm just seeing if this is even worth summarizing.
Yeah, he tried to do it realistic. That didn't work.
Yeah. And then junction model. There are colliding forces in play. We can only evaluate one pipe connection, one inlet outlet at a time, but the behavior needs to be symmetrical and fair towards pipes that are to be evaluated later. Currently, it is not. So basically, his model and improvements. The evaluation model I have arrived to works with 2 passes through the pipes in 1 tick. The formulas are more complex than the current one, so should be slower, but there will be one improvement to counterbalance it. The rough algorithm in one tick is as follows. I omit many necessary but boring details. So, number 1, done at the end of previous step. Every pipe states how much fluid it intends to send to neighbors called flow reservation using a simple heuristic.
Heuristic, yeah, which is basically it's a smart AI. It's an AI. It learns. Yeah.
Perform I cannot read today. Topological sorting by direction of reservations from 0. Evaluate pipes in the opposite direction, i.e. from end to start, against the expected flow. Update the pipe in 2 stages. Move fluids into neighbors proportionally to the space in them. Space allocation they gave to the current pipe, providing they were already evaluated in previous tick flow. Allocate the resulting free space to neighbors that are yet to be evaluated to ensure they get a fair share of it. Go through the pipes again, do cleanup, and calculate reservations for the next tick. So basically, this system ensures good behavior in the junctions. Essentially, every junction in the fluid will try to be split evenly between all the possible connections, which makes things very intuitive. And you can see like a kind of an image down here. So this is the good news. The good news is that pipes and fluids should be a lot more intuitive than they are now, and like junctions and flow and stuff. The bad news is this next part. It works nicely, but unfortunately the system is even more computationally demanding. Here comes in the key improvement, which is taking every straight pipe, every segment that has max 2 connections, and connect it into one piece. No matter how long it is, it will be evaluated in one calculation. Naturally, this loses some realism, but it is insignificant as it is the junctions that matter, and those will remain unaffected. So as long as you don't do crazy stuff like making pipe grids and keeping your pipe straight, they will have 0 effect on UPS. To put it more simply...
Which is similar to what they did with belts, right? They basically, when something entered the belt, they basically calculated...
Basically, yeah, they just applied the belt logic optimization.
Yeah, and I think they also did that with bots as well. They basically said that once something has picked up the thing, at that point, it's a graphics issue. And then when it delivers the item at the end, then it updates again or something like that.
Yeah. So to put it more simply, updates will only run on junctions and segments, and each junction fluid will be split evenly among the neighboring segments and junctions. Any excess from one neighbor will spill evenly to others. This segment is just a section of pipe without any splits. Fluids will transfer instantly through segments, but with a limited throughput. So basically, this is kind of the bad news, because, and people posted this on the forums, basically what this means is, it's funny because it's actually not really improving anything, because this will be great if you're just running really long straight sections of pipes. Like if you're one of those people who doesn't want to do trains and just like grabs oil outpost 2 screens away and pipes it, this is going to help you massively, right? However, for everything else, in fact, the main things that have UPS problems, i.e. nuclear and oil builds, this doesn't help. If anything, it's going to make it worse. Because if you think about it, in most oil builds, there are a lot of junctions. There are very few straight pipes in oil builds because, you have to connect and then, like turn them to go, it's like, there's because each refinery have 2 inputs, and then you have refineries next to each other. So there's a junction essentially like every couple tiles. So, and they say right here that it's going to be even more demanding to do junction stuff than it is now. So the way I'm understanding this and what I've talked with people with is basically for oil builds and to some degree nuclear builds, this is pretty much going to do nothing for UPS. In fact, it could make it even worse on UPS, which seems a little silly to me, seeing as those are the main things that we would want UPS improvement on.
Right.
Like, it's like, to me, this still makes nuclear, not viable for megabases.
Yeah, it doesn't fix it. Yeah.
It doesn't fix it. And they even say they wanted to fix it. In fact, because I believe... And if I'm wrong, I apologize, but I believe heat pipes are counted as fluid boxes, like fluid entities. So this would be the same for heat pipes. In heat pipes, I mean, those things have a connection, a junction, like every 2 tiles, right? Because they're hooking into the heat exchangers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, this is going to do nothing or make it even worse, which doesn't, I don't really understand. Like, I don't get it, because in my mind, nuclear and like big oil builds is what they would want to improve UPS for with pipes, and basically it seems like they've just made it worse.
It doesn't seem to be accomplishing the core goal here.
Yeah, like, I mean, sure, like I said, if you want to just run your oil outposts on pipe now, in fact, that may be even more efficient than trains at this point, then that's great. Of course, do keep in mind there will be a limited throughput, I believe, but otherwise, it seems like it's not really actually doing what a lot of people wanted it to do.
Yeah.
Now, I did read farther into the thread, and this is important. Someone mentioned that they were like, well, why doesn't the pipe calculation just go on a separate thread, right? Like a CPU thread, and then have like a 1-tick delay or whatever for like transferring that or something to the main thread. And Dominic replied and is like, you know what? That would actually work great. I didn't even think of multi-threading when I was writing this simulation. It's like, okay then. But the good news is then it's possible that they will move this to a separate thread, and that would actually be huge. Like that would just be a massive improvement. That would make like gigabases, giga oil builds, giga nuclear builds viable, because all these calculations are happening on an entirely separate thread than all the other stuff in the game.
Yep. So, and especially for a game that is so severely limited by threads on a CPU,
right?
CPU limited, that would help tremendously.
So if they can do that, then I'm thrilled. If they can't do that, I feel like this is not actually a good solution, because I mean, we just went over it. I mean,
it's not actually fixing the problem.
No, and quite possibly making it worse.
Yeah.
In these conditions. So yeah, this last part. So they kind of, they just basically say that. So a last convenience improvement are some rounding mechanisms to fill or move away those last, 0.001 fluids draining the last drops from the pipe system if the resources are disconnected, and filling all the way up if production is greater than consumption. Another point left to consider is how to solve accidentally connecting pipes and tainting your whole oil system with water. So current state and next steps. All this is nice and already working, but still in the stage of simulation. What will need to be done to get in 17? Figure out a good model for storage tanks. Perhaps refactor it from floats to integers, which would make it work more cleanly, but would also make some calculations more complicated. Finish algorithms for correctly drawing the flow direction in the connected straight pipes. Move it all into the game code. Write tests for it. So to sum up, we had this in our minds for a long time now, and performance was not the only issue we have considered. The new system will hopefully address all the issues we mentioned at the start. And then also, I guess they did like a bit of a redo on the forums.
Yeah.
Which is nice. Increased security and more modern web features and stuff like that. So there you go. Friday facts on the fluid system.
We'll have to see what they come up with based upon the feedback, and maybe they can take it back and, maybe, I don't know, in a month or so, they might be able to multi-thread it and hopefully fix all the issues.
Yeah, for sure. Completely agree. Hopefully they figure it out and don't make the issue worse.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's going to do it, guys. Thanks for watching. Do you have any last thoughts?
Nope, nothing else.
All right. Until next time, we will catch you later.